I've had a couple people that are religious in my life reaching out and being like, when you say that Islam accepts Christians and Jews, does it actually say so in so many words in the Qur'an? And it has, but like in piecemeal until I got to this point, and it says it like point blank. And it's the most amazing thing, and I think it makes sense when you recognize that Islam is just the culmination of the Abrahamic faiths, that this part makes total sense. Really quick, one other thing that I'll add is when you have a full understanding that the Quran and Islam is just the culmination of Abrahamic faiths, it makes sense then that Allah would, or God, would have a grace, like a special soft part in his spirit for the people that believed in him prior to Islam, right? Because it isn't to say that all Jews and all Christians were inherently believing in the bad word. That's not true. It's just saying that, like, to the Jews who believed, who were given the gospel and who doubted the gospel, I see you. And to the Christians who are given the gospel and then were given the Quran and doubted the Quran, I see you. And so I think that Allah, through the Prophet, saw an opportunity to reach out to his previous creations that had already believed in him and were worried that maybe they had, in some way, shape, or form, been deceived, and said, hey, this is for you as well. Surah Al-Hadid, 27 through 29. Jesus and his followers. Then in the footsteps of these prophets we sent our messengers, and after them we sent Jesus, son of Mary, and granted him the gospel, and instilled compassion and mercy into the hearts of his followers. As for monasticism, they made it up. We never ordained it for them, only seeking to please Allah, yet they did not even observe it strictly. So we rewarded those of them who were faithful, but most of them were rebellious. The next segment, an appeal to Jews and Christians. O people of faith, fear Allah and believe in his messenger, and he will grant you a double share of his mercy, provide you with a light to walk in on Judgment Day, and forgive you. For Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. This is so that the people of the book who deny the Prophet may know that they do not have any control over Allah's grace, and that all grace is in Allah's hands. He grants it to whoever he wills, for Allah is the Lord of infinite bounty. I think it's very important to understand that you can have taken God into your heart and have had people attempt to still lead you astray, and yet that seed of truth was still in there. In the same way that when I picked up the Quran and I knew almost immediately that it made sense this was the words of God, there is this disconnect, right? This dissonance that a lot of believers in the Western world have, where they know what they're being shown, where they know what the church is saying, they know what the temples are saying isn't true, but they don't know how to rectify it because the world is also just as bad, if not worse. I was there. I understand what that's like, living in a world where I felt that there was a seed of truth and the reality of God, but I felt no place where I could see the evidence of it. And yet, in here we have a reminder that you can be Jewish, you can be Christian, and have believed in God and have taken the truth of Allah into your soul. That seed was there, and once planted, it just needed nourishment. And we have long since lost the nourishment of the words of God in the Western world. And I think this helps explain that God didn't forget you, though. And he's just waiting.